perhaps all the other candidates had busy schedules, and I, who's not running for office, was the only one who would be in this area at this time of the year. After all, the lobby and the other faction already hosted everyone here in Pampanga a few days ago. You invited me to give a few remarks about political reportage and how media treats elections. It's quite difficult to be giving a keynote as the last event in a conference, and certainly the task is made even more daunting after hearing Mario's, as usual, excellent synopsis of all that has gone forward. I know that there are many items that I wanted to discuss that were already mentioned in Mario's summary, but let me nonetheless address them given my perspective. I understand, at the end of a long day. Everybody's been here since yesterday. I also know that this event is all that comes between you and your dinner, so I shall be certainly cognizant of that fact. Let me share with you a few reflections that I have, three reflections that I have about media reportage, in particular political reportage. The first is, I'd like to start with hope. A wish or desire, a confident expectation, a likelihood of success. Under normal circumstances, all of the foregoing would be correct, but for my purposes here this afternoon, none of them are so. Hope is one of the reasons why I hesitated to come over this afternoon. You see, I am reliably informed that Hope, even as we speak, will be addressing one of the networks and telling her story. And I, like 88,999,000 others, are curious about who she is, what she looks like, and what her story is. Caught in a ratings war and fueled by Filipinos' predisposition for the personal and thus penchant to gossip, Hope exemplifies the disconnect as between you, the practitioners of media, who wish and yearn for media to be responsible and uplifting, and the tastes of the broader audiences that we all serve. By the way, this disconnect also exists as between government and the public, for, by, and of the people for which it exists. It is also the same disconnect that we, I, for example, am very interested in political party development, finds as a humongous challenge in terms of advocating and recruiting many who hopefully would then subscribe to a program of government that my political party, the Liberal Party, the party to which I belong, already espouses and propagates. Whatever the state of the audience market is, whatever state of readiness they may be in or are expecting to be in terms of being able to tackle more substantive issues, perhaps we will never really know, certainly not at this time. The point is, the general media, or certainly a lot of practitioners in general media, have subscribed to the tabloidization of media, in particular the news and current affairs, and in so doing have decided to speak to the audience and communicate with the audience, and not necessarily in elevating or in uplifting the level of the discourse. I am not making a value judgment. But I think what I am doing is I'm making an observation as a practitioner or as a consumer of the media, as well as one who seeks to employ the media so that I can propagate my views, my platform, and the directions in which I would like the country to take. In so doing, the market is led to believe that lesser is better, and that the truth lies somewhere in between the sound bites. And all of this disconnection has a direct connection to a national attention deficit disorder in defining what's true and what's good, what's not, and what's abominable. In short, does the work of the media end in simply doing the 5 W's? Or, given the state of our development, given the state of the audience, is the work of the media, must the work of the media extend to trying to connect the dots, so to speak, so that there will be greater understanding of the import of what in fact is being reported? My take on this challenge is that it is the same challenge, as I said, that government and political parties and I myself face on a day-to-day basis. Things that we consider to be important being relegated to relative disregard by the broader publics that we all seek to serve. The second point I want to make is for you, the media, not to let us, or not to let them, or not to let anyone get away with it. It being trying to pull the wool over the public's eyes. The constant shifts in editorial priorities and the short attention span weaken our defenses against the viruses of the soundbite and the spin. Let me cite 2 examples. Recently, the government crowed about passage of the anti-terrorism bill. It was viewed as a major accomplishment of the special session, certainly of the advocacy of the government. What is lost in all of the debate about the success of the passage into law of the anti-terrorism bill is the fact that there really was no discussion as to whether this particular tool was what our country needed if we were really serious about fighting terrorism. My take on it is that it would be more important if we exerted effort to get the computers of immigration to be talking to the computers of the LTO for driver's license, to be talking to the computers of the NBI, to be talking to the computers of SSS, and so on and so forth. Passing a law that imposes a whole new set of penalties and a whole new set of challenges for civil liberties does not necessarily, in and of itself, advance the cause of anti-terrorism. Apart from the, I believe, inapplicability of this law or inappropriateness of this law at this time, there are very troublesome features of the law that perhaps did not get the attention that it deserved. I'll cite a few of them here this afternoon. Sections 18 and 19 of the version, for example, allows arrest and detention of any person suspected of the crime of terrorism for 3 days without any judicial intervention, meaning you can be disappeared. The National Security Acts, which are a feature of Singaporean, Malaysian, even UK society, is now being imported into our country, which has a very, very different historical, social, and cultural background. And so having this Internal Security Act, the provisions of this Internal Security Act, in this venue or in this terrain where governance is relatively weak, may in fact produce more problems than it actually solves. Moreover, in addition to the 3 days, simply on the approval of a to be decided upon municipal human rights officer, the 3 days can be extended for an unlimited period. The question is, who will train this municipal human rights officer, and who will supervise them, and who will determine what the parameters will be for them to grant such an extension? On whose payroll will they be? Section 39 and 54 allows the sequestration and freezing of assets and accounts and records on mere suspicion of terrorism. Section 6 disallows suspects who are under house arrest on mere suspicion of terrorism from using telephone, cell phone, email, computers, internet, or other means of communication. So in effect, you can be held incommunicado simply by being suspected of undertaking terroristic activities. The point I want to make is, I think that the government got away with this. There was really no major effort, no generation of public interest in engaging in this debate, and thus we now find ourselves, our civil liberties, at risk, all on the premise that advancing state security will not necessarily engender the risks to our civil liberties. And I dispute this, and I think that you, the media, who are much more sensitive to this, likewise can be further sensitized to this. The second example that I'd like to bring to your attention has to do with the recent disclosures of the lobby by the pharmaceutical companies on the medicines bill, amendments to our patents. I think it was very well reported, their efforts to hijack this. What has not been reported is that all along the process, even when I was DTI secretary and where we first began to undertake parallel importation, the pharmaceutical companies, and multinationals in particular, have been very, very aggressively exercising every undertaking such that this effort would be impeded and obstructions would put in the path. And finally, thank God that there was this outcry in Congress as to that seeming interference and intervention that they attempted to do in Congress. Again, letting people, or letting them, whoever they may be, get away with it. Which leads me to the third and last reflection that I'd like to share with you this evening, which is political reportage, particularly now in an electoral period. From Mario's comments, and I think there's general consensus, it really has been similar to the reportage of a basketball game or a basketball conference. Discussions as to who is in what slate are the same as who will be in what team. The rosters, filling up of the rosters of the team, and the discussions are focused on who got what song and who got what color and who got what slogan. And while this is all very interesting, it's really the same as talking about who's going to be in what uniform and who's going to be housed or quartered by what and trained by one coach or another. The surveys are like the seeds, who's ahead, who's not, and it's really just this one said this and this one said that. And in fact, the latest controversy is who is going to appear in whose rally tomorrow, or was it earlier today? It's all very well and good, and typically this is what is referred to as color commentary. I don't mean to criticize, but really the how is really the color, while the substance of it and what everyone stands for, what everyone will do, how people are committed to act or not act in a particular manner with respect to legislation and with respect to issues is very much not covered. Chacha, the administration has very clearly said they're going to put Chacha back on the front burner right after the elections. We have a JEPEPA, Japan-Philippines Economic Partnership Agreement, where we have a free trade agreement with Japan. It has pluses and minuses. It affects thousands of workers, for example, in the automobile industry, in exchange for which is the promise of admission of nurses into the Japanese domestic market. I think this is a substantive issue, and people ought to be able to say, yes, I'm running for the Senate, and in ratification, I will vote for or I will vote against. Pascal Lamy, I met with him yesterday, and gave a speech. He was formerly the EU Commissioner for Trade. My counterpart when I was a TGI Secretary is now being elected to the WTO Director General. He gave a speech rallying for acceleration of globalization, bringing down further of non-tariff barriers and accelerating the tariffication of agricultural products. Again, if we are going to be subscribing to another round or the completion of the Doha round, I think senators or those who are aspiring to be in the Senate ought to be asked how they will behave on this matter, and a whole other slew of matters. I understand the challenge before media, which is those items which are necessarily of interest, or what we think ought to be of interest, is not what interests the broader market. It's the same challenge that we politicians encounter, political parties encounter, that the government itself encounters. And simply to allow the segmentation of the market, while helpful, may not in fact be very useful from a societal development point of view. Yes, there are avenues and there are channels and there are publications that will indulge in this kind of reportage and will indulge in engaging its micro audiences in these kinds of discussions. But the broader audience is clearly disengaged, and when matters that really affect their lives are discussed and being decided upon, they are really not part of the discussion. So just as much as companies, corporations, politicians, political parties have to constantly try and refine and refresh their approaches in order to connect with this broader public, I guess it's also incumbent on media to undergo these same processes so that there will be a better connection, so that the disconnect will be much lesser than what it already is. I'd like to end here and engage you in a Q&A. I understand that is what was planned, so that we can further flesh out some of these ideas or other ideas that you may have discussed in an earlier session. I want to thank you for inviting me to be here. It's indeed quite an honor to be here addressing all of the leaders of the news and public affairs world in our country. Through you, the broader public gets to see how government, how its leaders, how its politicians act and behave, hopefully for their interest. It's also through you that their own ideas and conceptions as to whether things are good for them or not are formed in each of their own minds. And so really, you're the prism through which national development can take place. And so I want to thank you for this opportunity and hope that these reflections will help you as you consider how you can make yourself a much more engaged entity in how our people make decisions in their daily lives. Thank you.